Coming up on Chasing the Natty, we are continuing with our conference preview and draft series where we are taking you through the most important players for college fantasy in each conference. Today, we are starting part 1 of 2 for the G6 conferences covering the American, Sun Belt, and Conference USA today. All of this and more coming right after this.
Looking to throw. Off and running. He doesn't lose foot races. Touchdown Miami.
Jackson going to the end zone. What a night, both Sparks make it 4.
Shakes through a couple of tacklers, still on his feet. Hawkins to the end zone. Unbelievable.
This is Chasing the Natty, a college fantasy football podcast. All right, welcome in, everyone. This is Jared Palmgren, host of the Chasing the Natty podcast. Hope you guys are having a wonderful ride to your work on this Monday morning. We are the College Fantasy Football Podcast on the Campus to Canton Podcast Network. You can find us on all of your podcast feeds and on YouTube every Monday morning during the off-season at 6 a.m. sharp. If you want to support the great work we do here, head on over to campustocanton.com. Subscribe there with any of our phenomenal tiers. We got content ranging on all sorts of college football games, whether that be CFF, Devy, C2C, College DFS, Underdog Best Ball. If you play it, then we've got content, whether that's tools, rankings, podcasts, pretty much everything you need to succeed. In fact, right now, if you want to support the show even further, make sure when you sign up for one of our yearly membership tiers, you use that promo code NATTY, N-A-T-T-Y, to get 10% off of your yearly membership. Again, that is promo code NATTY, N-A-T-T-Y. If you can't do that, totally fine. You can just show us some love by leaving a like, a comment, subscribe on the YouTube side of things. If you're on the podcast side of things, just leave a 5-star review and make sure you are following the show so you never, ever miss an episode. Not only does that show us support, but also the entire game of college fantasy football in general. If you have any further questions or want to get in touch for whatever reason, you can find me and the show on Twitter. I'm at CFF_Jared. The show is at Chasing the Natty. And tonight, I got my main man, Mr. Chris Battistel at FFChrisB on Twitter back with us. And our special guest for tonight, one half of the G5 Hive podcast, Mr. Luke Probasco. I could not think of a better expert to bring on for you guys tonight to discuss or at least half of the G6 conferences tonight. So, Luke, we'll start with you, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Anytime we can talk football in the summer, I'm all for it. Obviously, less than 100 days away for our kickoff, and I'm just excited. You know, it's off season is the grind of obviously all the interviews that we're doing at the G5 Hive with our Worker Bee series, but then like just going through all the data, things like that, and then you get a finally draft season. The most fun. It's like Christmas, and just drafting. So I can't wait. But yeah, going strong in the Worker Bee series. Always prepping, always doing show sheets, and just motoring through.
Hey, you guys do incredible content with that over there, and you guys you expand on it every year. It feels like you get better guests on every year. It feels like, and now I believe I might have been today, might have been yesterday. I can't remember what day we're recording this, but if you're listening to this on Monday, you almost certainly will go and see it now. You guys got an interview with the head coach of Toledo, Mr. Mike Jacobs. Like, what a great get for you guys. That was a great listen for that.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Our first coach interview, plenty of player interviews. So that was kind of different because obviously when you talk to a coach, they are very polished and they're going to do their coach speak. But, it's definitely talking about his journey, how he got here. I mean, he was very successful, at all different levels, especially at Mercer where he's coming from, the culture he's building. And obviously there's a couple players that he has on his team that it's just good to get to know some of these guys. We highlighted a couple of them, talked to them about them. But yeah, getting a chance to talk to a brand new head coach, especially at a place that has had a lot of success, maybe hasn't broke through that glass ceiling quite, but it was fun. It was fun and different to talk with a head coach as opposed to a player or any of these beat reporters.
Yeah, no, again, great stuff over there. And again, we'll be drafting his players next week when we discuss the MAC and the rest of these G6 conferences. But again, this week we are covering 3 of the G6 conferences, and I can already hear some of you out there complaining about, Power 4 bias. Each of the Power 4 conferences got their own episodes. Why can't the G6 conferences get their own episode? And trust me, my heart goes out to you guys. I understand. We literally just don't have enough weeks between now and the start of the season, plus with the other content we plan to cover and everything. So unfortunately, they do get squished together, but it also really works out because 2 episodes. Now we get one half of the G5 Hive today with Luke, and the next week we are planning on getting Justin on here as well, so that'll be a really good show. But Chris,
yep,
I have not let you speak so far, and I'm a terrible host, man, for that.
Good.
Looking at today's player pool, again, we're covering the American, the Sun Belt, and the CUSA. Yep. Overall, what's your kind of general vibe with this player pool? We're not going to really dive into the individual conferences or anything because we haven't really separated our player rankings out like that. But just in general, like this half of the G5 or G6, excuse me, what are you seeing?
Solid group of players across the board, whether you're talking quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and even at the tight end position. Between these 3 conferences, you could really take advantage of the middle parts of your draft with some of the gems, some of the values you'll find across the board in these 3 conferences, Jared. So I like the player pool. I think we got a lot of good players to talk about, and I'm excited to hear what Luke has to say about Roman Gagliano. That's it.
Well, I'll throw it over to Luke here. Again, Luke, you and Justice are the experts when it comes to these players here. Obviously, if anybody wants to find good ways to research these teams, I mean, I would the first place I would look to see if you guys have a Worker Bee series episode up for a specific team already. Yeah. That's one of the first places I would certainly look. But when you're doing research for these 3 conferences, Luke, what kind of stood out to you about these players?
I mean, same as Chris. Definitely, if you're looking at fantasy points, quarterback heavy, especially if you're using a Froton special, a 6-point passing, touchdowns, wide receivers. There's a good mix of wide receivers and running backs. Just like even at the top, it's going to be wide receiver heavy, but there's a lot of good running backs that I like overall, and that even just like kind of goes through probably like the top 63 players. Quarterback heavy at the top, and then a nice mixture in between, and then tight end way down there. There's a couple good ones, but probably only going to get at this point maybe 8-9 points per game out of a tight end.
At tight end, I had 6 guys listed, and I maybe could have fit a 7th in. I'm still kind of deciding if I want to add this guy to my rankings yet. So we'll see if he gets discussed here today. But wide receiver, I mean, I definitely agree with you that really at all positions, but especially the skill positions, running back and wide receiver, it's like there's a couple guys I really like. But then things get very uneasy very quickly, and part of that is because, again, G6 teams are harder to research. There's huge surprises from these teams every single year where we think we have them figured out based on what happened last year or what camp reports are saying, and then the actual games start, and it's just completely different than what everyone was saying between beat reporters and everything. But there's a lot of guys that I go pretty deep here where I'm just happy to take shots on it, right? Where you feel good about, there's a lot of fun systems in these different conferences. All of these conferences are in one way, shape, or form defensively challenged. Like they have their stars and everything, right? But they're not going to be able to build up elite defenses like some of these Power 4 teams are going to be able to. So they're going you have scoring potential week in and week out with so many of these players. So again, it's just a fun group of players to kind of take shots on. Luke, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, when you look at the teams defensively and schematically on defense, this is one thing that we cover in the Worker Bee series. If you happen to listen to at least the first part of the defense, what kind of schemes do you run? There's a lot of 3-3-5s, which then that's why there's a lot of running backs that you could like there. Wide receivers, apparently, you got to play a lot of zone. What guys can get open and successful in zone coverages. So that's why I think there's so much, running backs, and wide receivers in a mixture. Because, I mean, in the American, there's a lot more of a 4-3 or a 4-2 base. But then, all the other conferences like the Sun Belt is going to be more of a pass happy and a 3-3-5 type of look. So, yeah, when you're listening to those, I would also say just listen to that first part of that defense and hey, what are these teams running schematically?
I'll ask you, Luke. Is that a recent development you've kind of found, or like, especially with transfer portal and teams kind of being forced into those systems a little bit more because their talent is being poached so much, or has that always been the case? Or
are you talking about just when what these teams have historically been?
Yeah,
I would say for the most part they're about the same.
Okay.
There's usually a team or two that maybe make a drastic change. But a lot of the times when we're bringing in a new defensive coordinator, it's usually they also ran a 4-3 or they also ran this. So they're not changing it. I can think back to maybe 2 years ago, North Texas, I believe, went from a 4 down lineman to a 3 down lineman, and they just were really bad on defense. And it's like, well, the body type for a nose tackle is much different than a body type for a defensive tackle in a 4-man front, especially at the G6 level. You need a guy who just eats up blocks, and they didn't have that, and they struggled that year. And well, it's no wonder that they struggled when you make that drastic change, because especially when you come in late, do you have your guys? And it's like, okay, how can I implement my defense with what I'm given? And sometimes these coaches are like, I don't really care who they are. I'm going to make my system work. And that doesn't always pan out.
Bringing it back to the offensive side of the ball here, Luke, with these G6 teams, we're seeing more and more turnover from them because they're kind of getting hit with a double whammy. Obviously, they get guys that graduate every year. But now, again, like these Power 4 teams, they come in and take a lot of the best players. How, in recent years, have you guys seen on the G6 side of things, seen teams kind of adapt to this? Has it led to more players kind of standing out and leading to more superstars because there's not as many options for the offenses to go to? Or is it almost the opposite, where because they just keep losing star power every year, they're not able to develop guys into superstars by the time, they're getting into their upper years?
I would say what I've noticed is, one, when somebody leaves, an opportunity now is open to somebody else. And there's a lot of great talent at the G6 level, and those guys step in. Now, whether it's, hey, this is our offense, this is what we run, a new person gets that opportunity to do it, and you kind of make a star out of that player. But then the other thing is just in the recruiting portion of things. Now that the Power 4 is just, if you make an all-conference team, you are essentially probably gone. You're going to the Power 4 level. Well, if I'm a low 4-star or a high 3-star, and I might have walked on to an Oklahoma State or, a Missouri or something like that, well, now they're not taking those guys anymore. They're taking the known. They don't want to develop people. They want to know what they're getting. And especially if they're going to spend money in the transfer portal, they want to see what they're getting. So then those guys are now going to these G6 schools. So then you're getting a higher caliber of guy. And then this is where you kind of get those breakouts like, oh, hey, tell me about this Jakari Lewis guy. Like he popped onto the scene. He did well. You have these different freshmen that'll pop up and then they might be there for a year or two. A lot of these G6 teams have really embraced the, hey, come here, we'll get you on tape, you'll be seen, and you can go succeed somewhere else. A lot of these, when we're talking to these beat reporters, that's the pitch is, look how many kids that we got to the SEC. Look how many kids we got to the Big Ten. Yep. That is now turning into the pitch.
Yeah, and which certainly sucks a little bit on the dynasty side, right? Because that just leads to a lot more, confusion about projecting guys years down the line. But at the same time, right, if these guys are doing well, and we're starting to see a little bit more success of these guys translating up from the G6 to the Power 4 level. So obviously these G6 teams are doing a good job with what they're doing there. And a guy that comes to mind for me this year is Lakillian Graves over at UTSA. I'm definitely excited to see. I think he's the highest I can't remember if you guys have done the UTSA one or not, Luke, but like, correct me if I'm wrong. He is the highest rated recruit that UTSA has ever signed, right?
Texas State?
Yes.
Lecarius Grace, right? So Texas
Yes.
State. Yeah.
Did I say UTSA
think, yeah.
again? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's my bad. For some reason,
he's one of their tops. We have done Texas State, and he is a guy that they are definitely excited about.
Alrighty. Well, enough of the general talk here. Chris, do you got any final thoughts before we move on to the actual draft here?
No, let's get after it.
All right,
I should say one thing.
Okay.
We did talk to Texas State, but that hasn't released yet. If you do subscribe to the G5 Hive website, you get those recordings as soon as we're done in editing them. Those are, if you sign up for our subscription, you get those right away. Otherwise, it's about a 2 or 3 week lag time before they're out on YouTube.
Well, there's a good reason to subscribe over to the G5 Hive website right there, y'all. And I should have provided you that opportunity at the start, Luke. I'm sorry. Again, they got a ton of great stuff over at the G5. Actually, we're about to break over to the draft anyway, Luke. So why don't you take this opportunity to tell people about what else is available at y'all's website?
At the G5 Hive, we have we're hopefully going to have a draft tool come the beginning of the year. We have an optimizer, a lineup optimizer that pulls from fantasy points. It pulls our fantasy points from the FF. The CFF guys? Gosh, why am I blanking on Mike Bainbridge and Joe over there?
Oh, CFF site.
The CFF site pulls rankings from there, where you can see, hey, who are guys that I want to pick up each week? Who are the guys that I want to face? Put in our matchup. We also have
nice.
You can see wide receiver versus cornerback matchups, so you can see what teams are giving up a lot of points, fantasy points to the outside versus the slot, and you can look and like, hey, this is a guy I'm thinking about playing at the slot, and how much does he get points in the slot versus when he lines up outside. So it's almost like a version of the cornerback wide receiver matchup, and you can see like how all the defenses are doing against running backs, quarterbacks, and you can kind of, if you want to pick your own as opposed to doing the lineup optimizer, you can kind of pick your own flavor of how you want to set your lineup each week.
Yeah, that's definitely some of the cooler stuff that you guys have over there. Again, the data kind of being broken down like that almost by position is pretty insane, and it really does help a lot of times when you see, like, a lot of people ask all the time, they're like, who's a guy I can pick up this week that might pop off? It's like, well, I go over to the G5 Hive website and look up, like, all right, which teams are giving up the most to the slot? Is what we do already a lot of times, right? Where we go and look like, all right, which teams are giving up the most to, like, most rushing yards. All right, I'm going to go grab the running back that's facing them this week, because maybe that running back only gets 10 carries, but he could end up with 100+ yards. Similar thing, right? You go to y'all's data and just look at, like, all right, which defense they're giving up the most to the slot. Even if the slot isn't super great in the offense facing them that week, that's probably going to be that player's best week, theoretically, right? So,
or at least all it is giving you a probability that,
for sure.
How can I make an educated guess? The other thing that in our lineup optimizer that we have is weather. Weather gets pulled from the areas on a daily basis, a couple hours a day, and you can see if it's going to be heavy rain, if it's going to be windy, if it's in a dome, whatever it is, that's also captured there.
Heck yeah. Again, a lot of great stuff over there at the G5Hive.com, so make sure you guys go check that out. Well worth the subscription. Let's hop over to the draft, gentlemen. Luke, you are going to be on the clock here with the 101. Chris, you'll be the 102. I will stick myself here at the end at 103. We'll go 20 rounds. We'll have 60 players drafted by the end of this. I think we are good to go. So, Luke, throwing you on the clock in 3, 2, 1. Who are you picking?
I'll take Easton Messer, wide receiver, FAU.
A real sleeper pick.
Friend of the podcast for Chasing the Netty, right?
Not Chasing Netty. We did interview him on the Campus to Canton CFF Summit. A month or two back, and that was a surprise that Felix had in store for Chris and I when we hopped on that. He just said, "Hey, I'm bringing on a special guest today. I'm not going to tell you who it is, though." And like literally like 5 minutes before the show, he's like, "By the way, it's Easton Messer." And I'm just like, "Well, all right, I got to prepare some questions now."
Yeah. So I mean, pretty simple. He's going to be a volume hog. They're getting a lot of targets. Pretty easy. Plus going pretty high in drafts. It's I think a pretty safe pick.
I'd say it's not really much to say. Again, 136 targets last year, the top returner in terms of wide receivers, and he was wide receiver 7 last year with only 5 touchdowns on the year. There's an even higher ceiling for him this year if he can actually just get a few more touchdowns to him. So yeah, again, the clear 101 pick among these 3 conferences. Chris, what do you got, man?
I'm going to go quarterback here. I was kind of hoping Luke would go quarterback with all that. I'm going to pick quarterback talk at the top there, but he went Easton Messer, which is fine. It's a great pick, but I'm going to go Nick Minicucci from Delaware, 3,500 pass yards last year. Coaching staff is staying, decent schedule, gets Vanderbilt week 2, and then from there on out, they're all just games that they're going to be competitive in. Did get the 10 rushing touchdowns last season. So if he kind of goes backwards a little bit in that department, hopefully not too far backwards, I'm still expecting Nick to put up the same kind of production. Averaged 40 passing attempts per game and only had one game where he didn't throw a touchdown, but in that game he still threw for over 300 yards. So he's the highest ranked quarterback that I have between these 3 conferences, and I'm expecting him to ball out again in 2026.
If you just return your offensive coordinator, your head coach, and your quarterback, you automatically fly up these lists of what this team could be. And I just want to put it on the record. If you were to tell me at the end of the season that Delaware is in the college football playoffs, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. Conference USA, very similar to when Liberty went and played Oregon and whatever bowl that was. Delaware could, they should. They're going to be in competition to win the CUSA. They have Vanderbilt week 2 when you get a Jared Curtis. How does Delaware play in that game? They played Wake Forest and got just trounced last year. So it's okay, how are they going to do? But if you can get that by what Vanderbilt will look like by the end of the season, hey, if you can get one of those wins, and then they play Virginia, which I get Virginia was, in the ACC championship. But if you can win one of those games or maybe sneak away with both of them, I think there's a world that we're talking about Delaware.
Yeah,
Call me crazy.
They certainly need to show they're at least competitive in those games, and then from there they need Vanderbilt not to fall off a cliff without Pavia, and then they need Virginia to once again at least be competitive in the ACC and be talked about towards the end of the year of they could be somebody that's going to the ACC championship. Those things will definitely help Delaware at that point. And I agree with you. A win over either of those programs will definitely help them out a lot. Minicucci is also interesting to me because Chris, you mentioned he scored 10 touchdowns on the ground last year, about 100 rushing attempts, but he doesn't really create a lot of production on the ground. So it feels ripe for him to regress on that front. Yeah, but you know what else is going to regress, but in a positive direction, is his passing touchdowns. Dude had 480 pass attempts last year and only 22 touchdowns on that. That's just a crazy low number of passing touchdowns there. I feel like that if whatever he loses on the ground, say he loses 5 touchdowns on the ground, he'll probably gain that back through the passing game, because I don't think there's any way he only throws 22 touchdowns on nearly 500 pass attempts again this year. So
yeah, and his starting wide receivers back, starting running backs back, and a good amount of their starting offensive line is back as well. So it's all a combination of really good things heading into the year for Delaware, man.
All right, I'm on the clock now at the 103, and I'm just going to go ahead and take Mr. Will Henderson here, a guy that's been going about late second round in most drafts here. I'm a little hesitant on him. I'll explain why in a second here, but I also get why people are in on this. He was super explosive last year. Kind of took over after Robert Henry, God rest his soul, was just running out of steam, Father Time catching up to him in the college sense. I know I made that comment before and people took issue with me saying Father Time's catching up to a 20-something-year-old, but it is what it is. Henry was just running out of gas by the time, what was it, 6th year last year, and Henderson kind of took over from there, hovered around QB 40, so not a guy that was blowing it away at any point last year, but UTSA, man, like when they get a number one back like they had Sincere McCormick a few years ago, it can turn into something magical. Problem is, I am a little concerned with Amari Peterson, a former 4-star running back, hanging out in that backfield. Brandon High is returning to UTSA after a 1-year stint at Cal, so I'm kind of scared that both those guys combined will force us into a little bit more of a committee situation. But I look at my projections, and I see that even if Henderson only has about 175 carries, which is still a decent amount, I'm not going to pretend like that's a small amount of carries, but if he gets to 175 carries, he's RB14 in my projections. And so I think that, again, if his volume isn't there, he'll have enough efficiency and explosiveness to kind of save him from any kind of committee situation. So I'm happy taking him here as the first running back off the board.
I think you've got valid concerns with. I think it's Brandon Hyde, probably the number 2 there, and I think he's going to get a lot more work than people want to believe.
All right, Luke, you are on the clock at 2:01. What do you got?
I think I'm going to take a quarterback who has a very high rushing upside, and that's going to be Caden Creel, Jacksonville State. Last year ran for 81 yards per game. Let's see here, fantasy point wise, he had almost 1,000 yards rushing. You lose Cam Cook. They're gonna obviously find someone to supplement in that running game, but it's gonna be the Caden Creel show.
No, I mean, there's very few guys in any draft right now that you can peg for 1,000 rushing yards at the quarterback position. Creel might be the safest option of those bunch. He's a 1,000-yard rusher last year, and like you said, Luke, they don't have Cam Cook back there. They got a lot of options that people seem to like, but like I said, they're going to rely on him mostly, and he's one of a few guys here, interestingly enough, as I look at all these quarterbacks where it's like they start off slow for the first couple of weeks, whether it's because they were still in the midst of a quarterback competition or, there's another guy there, but after like week 4, they just took off. Creel was absolutely one of those guys, a top 20 quarterback after he took over in week 4. And like you said, ran for over 1,000 yards. So again, great pick there. Chris, what do you got, man?
I'm going to go wide receiver, another Delaware fighting hen, the wide receiver 1, Sean Wilson, 87 targets in the regular season, 97 targets if you include the bowl game. Only brought in 2 receiving touchdowns. So if we want to project Minakuchi to get a boost in that department, passing touchdowns, Sean Wilson should be the benefactor of some of those passing touchdowns. So for me, a wide receiver that's going to be able to average double-digit points, high double-digit points per outing. And his season last year was a tale of 2 seasons. Really didn't really have too many good games in the first half, but in the second half was really consistent, putting up 4 back-to-back games of nearly 20-plus points, and then struggled a little bit after that, but then finished the season on a high. So for me, Sean Wilson teamed up with Minakuchi with the rest of the wide receivers that are left in this conference. There's still a few good ones, but I feel like he's right behind Easton Messer as the wide receiver 2 in the pool.
We've seen this time and time again in CFF, right, where you got 2 guys in a heavy passing offense with like 90-plus targets. One of them leaves, one stays, and that the one that stays really does have an opportunity to just go absolutely nuclear with their volume, right? Like he got 97 targets in 13 games last year. There's a world where he could end up being one of the wide receivers who ends up with 120-plus targets next year, just because maybe nobody else in that passing game really steps up, and he's the best option they've got, so they're just going to keep peppering him with that heavy volume. So I like to pick a lot there with Wilson. All right, I'm going to pick my second guy here at the 2-3. I think it's just going to be a running back heavy show for me, it appears, because I'm going to take Jamari McClure out of Tulane. And hesitant at first to really kind of make this call here, because again, if you read like a lot of the beat reports, he's been pretty absent in a lot of those reports. And granted, part of it has been he's been injured, The tone that's been described with that has a lot of times been, is more precautionary than anything, which is obviously a good sign in some regards because, that means that Tulane is protecting an important asset. At the same time, Maurice Turner has apparently had a really good spring, and he's definitely going to be involved here. But we saw at the end of last year, with Will Hall involved with his offense, that McClure was getting a boatload of carries. Like, again, 94 yards versus Florida Atlantic, 122 versus Temple, 69 versus Charlotte. Obviously not super great there. But then in the bowl game against North Texas, 121 yards and a touchdown on 22 carries. We've seen with Will Hall back during his time at Southern Miss, he is absolutely willing to hand the ball off to their top running back over there. Back in those days, it was Frank Gore. I wouldn't be shocked at all if McClure has himself a really high upside ceiling in this offense, so long as Maurice Turner doesn't become too much of a problem.
All right, I am going to take wide receiver Anthony Eager, South Alabama. He'll be my pick. I think, we kind of maybe we're hoping for more last year from him, but this year he looks primed to take over there in the slot. What you want a major Applewhite slot guy. The last 4 seasons, the slot has averaged 119 targets. That's right. Last 4 years, averaged 119 targets. They've had 1,193 yards and just about 6 touchdowns. So give me Anthony Eager for South Alabama.
It's a system play. I think the only question is talent, right? Because last year, like you said, we were asking for more here. 8.3 yards per reception. I don't care how much volume you're getting. That's not going to cut it. Like if you doubled his target numbers last year, right, and you just kept everything else the same, and you double his receptions, double his yardage, and everything like that, on 112 targets, he would have 680 yards. That ain't gonna cut it even in the best of years for CFF. Maybe in a PPR league because you're getting like 80 points off of just receptions alone at that point. But it's not gonna be the Jalen Tolberts, the Jamal Pritchett's of the past, right? We need Eager to step up in a big way. And I've drafted plenty of Eager. I'm not saying this is a bad pick by any stretch of the imagination, but if you're later in a draft, maybe you're in a deeper league, I've taken a couple shots at some of the other wide receivers in that room, just in case one of them kind of steps up a little bit more if Eager falters again this year.
The big thing is Devin Vosen. He was on the outside, inside, mainly on the outside, but he would be utilized there on the inside. A lot of motions to get him in matchups. 103 targets last season, 34.2% target share. That's gone. I look for Eager to up his 18.6% target share and only 56 targets last year. I expect a big increase there.
All righty. Chris, what do you got, man?
I'm going to go running back, and this one might break Jared's heart.
No,
but I'm going to go East Carolina running back.
No, Chris, stop it. Stop it. No.
Sorry, buddy, but he's
there's a perfectly good wide receiver for you to take. No,
there it is. To ruin your run. I can let you talk about him, Jared, by all means. I know how high you are on him. If you want to talk him up, go ahead. But
literally, all I have in my notes is just my boy less than 3, so like a little heart. I love Ashton Gray so much. This is one of the ones I'm proud of this year. I pinpointed him early on where I was like, hey, like Caleb Hawkins was great last year, but there was another running back behind him that was pretty dang good as well as a redshirt freshman. And he follows Jordan Davis, the offensive coordinator formerly of North Texas, over to East Carolina. And pretty much him and the rest of these North Texas guys that didn't follow Eric Morris to Oklahoma State are basically saying like, hey, we want our shot to be the main guys. And, following their offensive coordinator there makes a lot of sense. And Jordan Davis really just cannot shut up about him. So, yeah, I like Ashton Gray. I've drafted so much of him this year. But, Chris, if you got more to say, please go right ahead, man.
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth, Jared. So you did him enough justice. There's nothing more I can say there, buddy.
All right, well, Chris, then you can talk about my guy. I'll return the favor. Top guy I have on my board right now. I'll take another running back. 3 running backs in a row. Jakari Lewis, I'm not letting somebody else take this one from me, but again, Dowell Gaines very solid with running backs in recent years. Rashad Dubinion was a top 35 running back halfway through the season last year before he started getting hurt, and then obviously Lewis kind of took over in the second half. Raheem Sanders, who we all thought was kind of dead in the water after his last bad year at Arkansas, Gaines turned him into a top 30 back his final year there at South Carolina. Lewis was just on fire at the end of the year. 33 carries for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns versus Marshall. 22 carries for 108 yards versus Arkansas State. And then 16 carries for 55 yards versus Georgia Southern. He'll be the clear RB1 for App State this year. I would not be shocked if he hits above 250 carries on the year. So, Chris, again, returning the favor. I said my piece. You got anything else you want to say about Jakari Lewis?
Oh, again, took the words right out of my mouth. Such a great pick, Jared.
Alrighty. Luke, you're on, man.
All right. I think I am going to take a quarterback. I think there's some conversation about, hey, where should this guy go in drafts? I'm pretty high on him. I'm going to take Braxton Woodson, quarterback at a Navy. You got Blake Horvath, obviously his illustrious career. He's moving on. Braxton Woodson should be the quarterback one. Blake Horvath had 104 yards per game on the ground. Woodson, in his limited, time, he had 103.5 yards on the ground. They're going to utilize him. He's a big guy. He's the most athletic running athlete on the field. Last year, they even had packages to take Blake Horvath off the field. He was so important that they decided to take him off to put Braxton Woodson in there. Braxton Woodson wheels up. Last year, the issue was, can Navy's offensive line with all these new guys work together? 11-2, they work together just fine. A lot of people are coming back. That's not a concern. It is now their strength. Give me Braxton Woodson.
Chris, you got any thoughts on Woodson?
No, another solid pick across the board for us, gentlemen. Quarterback that's going to produce with his legs, which is what you want, especially in 4-point passing touchdown leagues. Anytime you can scoop up the quarterbacks that. What's his ADP, Jared? Do you have that off by hand? I feel like
it's not very high, man. I've gotten him at some great deals so far this year. And again, this is not the most up to date ADP. I've been bad about it this year. I need to be better about making sure. He is currently coming off the board at QB 31 and coming off in the mid to late 12th round in drafts right now. And again, he's one that definitely fluctuates a lot. I've gotten him I've seen him go off the board as early as the 7th round. I've gotten him as late as the 19th round. So definitely somebody that if you're in a draft, like, keep an eye out. You might be in the midst of a bunch of Woodson doubters and he falls pretty dang far. I agree with every point you made, Luke, about him. The only thing I might add is that Horvath was obviously great on the ground as well, but his real strength was adding a different level of passing dynamic that we don't really see out of these triple option teams very often. I mean, he's a near 10 yards per pass kind of guy, which is pretty insane for a triple option quarterback there. I don't know that Woodson's that. I don't know if he's that good of a passer. I think there's a decent shot he could, be 500 yards less on the year than Horvath was the last couple of years. But I fully agree with you otherwise, Luke. I've drafted Woodson a ton this year. I think there's a decent shot that this quarterback position for Navy is just a really good spot for CFF going forward. So
I think he'll be serviceable. He completed 9 passes and obviously Blake Horvath was the guy, but he did throw 9 completions for 110 yards. So he's got that in his repertoire. Is he as good as Horvath? I don't think so, but
at least not on that regard.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, 4-2, what you got?
Ooh, some decent options here across the board. Wide receiver, running back, tight end, quarterback. There's some good ones. I'm gonna hit the wide receiver well again, and I'm gonna go Jamarie Robinson from Missouri State. put up a lot of his production when he was shifted to the slot position last year. Second half of the season is when he really came on. And if you look at what the Cala offense, the new offensive coordinator, likes to target in his offenses is that slot wide receiver. The slot wide receiver last year averaged 12.1 fantasy points per game. He should get an upgrade in quarterback as well, with Skylar Locklear potentially being the QB1. So with that, Jamari Robinson should see an uptick in production across the board. So he's my pick at the 4-2.
And Mike Calla very quietly has been a bit of a solid spot for wide receiver volume. Like his top wide receiver, if you extrapolate over 12 games the last 2 years, has averaged about 100 targets. So again, you give a guy like Robinson, who's been pretty efficient in his career, even if he doesn't always have the volume to go with it, like you give a guy like that 100 targets, like he could hit 1,000 yards. And I've drafted Robinson a ton, Chris. This is definitely one of the guys that you and I share a lot of love together for.
I think what's going to be interesting about is how they use him this year, because I think there's a chance that they could use him more in the slot this year. Mm-hmm. But he's so, like, if I'm trying to remember, he was almost like a 50-50 guy, whether he was outside or slot. He can really be utilized in either spot. So whatever is going to help Missouri State in being more dynamic, like that's where he's going to go, and he can help this team in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, so he was 60%.
Go ahead, Jared.
Oh, no, Chris, you talk, man. I talk too much.
Yeah, 60% slot rate to 39.7, but it was really the first half of the season is when it was the split down the board. You know, he had games 11 snaps in the slot, 15 snaps out wide, but when you got to week 9 down is when it really shifted to mainly slot focus scheme for him last season. So you're right, depending on how they utilize him in the passing offense is really going to determine his fantasy output. But if he stays primarily in the slot, that's where he did a lot of his damage last year. So
and I would hope that they use him in the slot, because they're going to run that run pass option, which is going to be this zone based scheme where just innately that offense is get the ball out quick. So you're going to want something close to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm gonna dig into the wide receiver well here. I'm gonna go David Amador out of UTSA here. 12-game target numbers for the top wide receivers under Traylor over the last 6 years here. You guys ready for this? 95, 112, 112, 109, 90. Amador does not have much competition to be the top wide receiver this year for the Roadrunners. You return Owen McCowan for one last ride here. I wish Amador was a little bit more efficient. Otherwise, I'd be a lot more stoked about this pick. But you know, there's a decent shot that, again, he kind of has that wide receiver room pretty locked down as the top guy there. This UTSA offense, especially with Owen McCowan's final year here, maybe they just let him go buck wild here. I think Amador could end up being a pretty solid pick here. All right, Luke, you are up, sir.
Let's see here. You know what? We've had the running back taken, but I'm also I gotta look up this guy. I'm pretty high on. Let's see here. I think this guy's also going to do pretty well. Going pretty late, ADP of 338.5. Brock Spalding, wide receiver.
Okay. Wow. All
ECU.
right.
You talked about, just how excited you are about Jordan Davis coming over. Slot averages 19.27 points per game in a full point PPR league. This ECU always seems to look at the offensive side of the ball and how can we get more explosive. I think Brock Spalding is going to be a name to watch.
I'll ask you, Luke, why him over Ray Joseph coming over from Miami, a former blue chip guy?
No, I got nothing for you.
Okay, I was just curious if you had a feel on that.
Nope, have not talked to ECU either. So
gotcha. It could be interesting because like these guys could end up getting like mixed around. Like I believe Joseph, if I remember correctly, I'll have to should probably have looked this up before I started asking. He could be an outside guy, and I'm just looking like a fool right now.
So I just think Spalding is I guess if you just want to say, hey, look at ECU slot, especially after you listen to our Worker Bee series when we get to ECU, insert ECU slot player here.
No, for sure. Yeah. And yeah, I was correct that Ray Joseph has played majority slot during his time at Miami. So it stands to reason that he could play slot here. But also knowing Jordan Davis, you're probably having two slots out there at all times, right? Again, they'll probably run 4 wide quite a bit. And so they'll probably both be out there on the field. So it's just, I agree. Take your shot on whichever one you want. So, Chris, you're on the clock with the 5-2.
I'm gonna go quarterback. Luke mentioned at the top of the show, there's a ton of quarterbacks that you can take out of these conferences that are going to be able to give you high level production. And the one that I'm going to pick is out of Marshall and Carlos Del Rio Wilson, 155 rush attempts last year, over 700 rushing yards, married to his decent passing output last season. Not really starting all the games, didn't start week 1, threw for 2,000 yards, 17 passing touchdowns. Decent. He's got Penn State week 1. Then his playoff schedule lines up with I think it's ULM, Georgia State, and Appalachian State Mountaineers. So there's a lot of positive outcomes ahead for Carlos Del Rio Wilson if he can stay on the field. So with his decent passing work and the amount that he rushes the ball, Carlos Del Rio Wilson is valuable in both 6-point and 4-point passing touchdown leagues, man.
Yeah. Top 20 QB in fantasy points per game after he took over. He could have finished as high as QB 10 in fantasy points per game if he didn't have that, injury against Georgia Southern in that final week. And like I said, it did on the back of 660 rushing yards last year. Passing volume's a little limited, right? Only 256 attempts last year, but he was very efficient with those opportunities, going about 8.0 yards per attempt. Again, we do need those touchdown numbers to come up, I would say. Again, 23 total touchdowns and 10 starts.
Yeah.
Ain't going to cut it next year. So hopefully, second year starting, him being the main guy, he'll get those numbers up. Hopefully. All right. I am going to go quarterback as well. And Chris, I'll ask you. Are you still a believer in Zach Kittley?
Yes, sir.
Then my next pick's a no-brainer. We got to go with the quarterback of Zach Kittley offense. Caden Veldkamp, 500-plus pass attempts last year, 3,500-plus passing yards. Big problem? Turnovers. Lots of them. 17 interceptions for Veldkamp last year, led the country. They were a huge reason why Veldkamp and really the entire FAU offense struggled to score last year. He's got to get those cleaned up, but if he can get those cleaned up, and I have to imagine he's not, he can't lead the country in interceptions again. Otherwise, he will be done by week 5. If he can clean those interceptions up, I think we'll start seeing him resemble the Zach Kittley QBs of old here, and that'll make him more than worth a pick here at this point.
Yeah, like the pick. Solid grab there. It was him or Del Rio Wilson for me.
If you took Veldkamp, I was going to take Del Rio Wilson, so we were on the exact same page.
Okay, same page. Yep.
All right, Luke.
All right. Well, I am going to take probably not too many players will come off of this team, but one guy that I am intrigued about, slot guy, App State goes over to Charlotte. I'm going to take Jaden Barnes here. He's going to be probably one of the only fantasy relevant guys maybe on Charlotte's team. We'll see when we do our breakdown with them later on the G5 Hive Worker Bee series. But dude is a slot machine, and I'm trying to look up a couple.
I got the names for you right here, Luke. Chase Hendricks, 103 targets last year. Coleman Owen, 87 targets and over 1,000 yards the year before. Sam Wiglis, 2 years in a row, 85-plus targets. And in one of those years, 10-plus touchdowns. Again, Tim Albin, slot wide receivers are a very, very good investment. And like you said, Luke, Barnes left App State. He was the top wide receiver at App State last year in terms of target share. So you have to think that he's not leaving that position to go somewhere where it's going to be worse for him. He's going to a system here that's proven to use slot guys really well here. I think I agree with you, Luke. Again, Barnes is a great pick at this range.
And this is where I think it's fun to talk about, because some people are like, hey, it's not Tim Albin because, I'm trying to remember the OC that was there
Brian Smith
at Ohio. Brian Smith, it's him. Well, okay, you want to look at Todd Fitch? What has he done in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years? He's averaged, his wide receiver one comes out of the slot, 112.5 targets, 1,047 yards, and 6.25 touchdowns. Either way you cut it, looks like it's going to be Barnes here in the slot, having a year for it.
Agreed, 100%. All right, Chris, if you don't got any thoughts on Barnes, we're ready for your 6'2" pick.
No, I had him. He was on my short list here at 6'2", depending where Luke was going to go. I have another wide receiver here that I projecting to possibly be the wide receiver one for his program, and that's KD Hutchinson out of Western Kentucky. New
Good
offensive
pick.
coordinator in Brody Miller, so not too much known of what
Bodie
to
Reader.
expect.
Bodie Reader.
Bodie Reader.
Yep.
So I'm still expecting he's returning to the program. 76 targets last season. Only saw the end zone in the first 2 weeks last year, in week 0 and week 1, and then was held out for the rest of the season. So with the 3 touchdowns, again, these wide receivers, if they see a decent uptick with the volume that they're seeing out of the pass game, if they see a decent uptick in scoring, in touchdown production, you're looking at guys that can vault themselves into wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and maybe wide receiver 1 talk at the end of the season. So I like the wide receiver room that I've kind of built up here so far.
Yeah, the top wide receiver of Western Kentucky last couple of years has been on the outside, and I'm sure we'll have another name for you guys later if you're still of that mindset and you think that's going to be the thing that trumps things at the end of the day. But again, like you said, Hutchinson's the top returning wide receiver, and Bodie Reader, the new OC, has actually favored the slot more often in recent years. So if you're thinking that the offensive coordinator has kind of the final call here, then Hutchinson is definitely the play to go with here. So. All right, I'm on the clock now, I guess. Oh, Luke, you look like you want to say something.
No, I'm
Nope.
good.
All right, cool. I'll make my pick then. I'm gonna go quarterback again here. We've had one triple option quarterback come off the board. A couple other guys that probably are close to triple option quarterbacks, considering how weak their passing is compared to their rushing. But I'll take Cale Helms here. Once Army was done playing hokey pokey at quarterback between him and I don't even remember the other guy's name at this point. But Helms was clearly the better guy. Once he took over after week 5, he was a top 20 quarterback the rest of the year. Just a solid producer week in and week out. You just never really had to worry about him. You plugged him in. He was going to fall into the end zone at least once or twice throughout the game, and you just called it a day from there. This modified triple option system for Army that they've adopted over the last couple of years has just been absolutely
single option.
Single option, really.
Run
with the quarterback has been gold. I don't think there's any need to really question it at this point. I think Helms, of all the quarterbacks here today, I'd say Helms might be the lowest or the highest floor option, just because of how Army's been running that system.
All right, Chris, would you like me to talk about a running back or a wide receiver?
Ooh, let's go running back. I'd like to see what you got on the board here at running back.
All right, I'll go with Kerry FIU.
Yes.
There with Willie Simmons, they crushed it last year. I think he's probably in that neighborhood of probably going to be in that 16 to 20. I think 18 would be like a sweet spot for him in points per game. I think it's going to be the Kerry show. So give me Kerry here. If you're looking for running backs, I mean, there's just 3 of us here. Let's see here. I think he is a solid running back. And if he is your RB3 or something on your team, I think that is more than serviceable,
Luke, you want to hear what he's going as an ADP right now?
Yeah, I'd love to.
RB 81.
Oh, okay. Then yeah,
Like I have scooped him up in so many drafts, it's not even funny. Like again, KJ Owens is gone. Carey was the clear number 2 guy last year. There's some people who are in on Devontae Lyons, and don't get me wrong, there's been some buzz for him this spring. I'm not going to ignore that, right? But if we get a similar split to what we had last year between the RB1 and the RB2, like yeah, Lyons is going to be, eating into what Carey could be getting, but should still be plenty of volume there. And I even have it in my projections where if Carey's getting like 30 less carries on the year, and like Devontae Lyons got like 30 more carries than what Carey got last year as the RB2, still more than enough volume for Carey to have a really solid season here. I'm not buying into the idea that Lyons could outperform him at some point. There's a pretty clear reason why he had 60 less carries than Lyons last year. And it's not like Carey's a talent slouch by any stretch of the imagination. Like he transferred down from the Power 4. He used to play at Georgia Tech there. So, in addition, Lyons was also barely breaking 4 yards per carry last year. He was less than Owens on key efficiency stats like yards after contact per attempt and breakaway percentage. I'm really in on Carey. I've drafted a ton of him this year, and if he busts, it sucks. I got it wrong, but like, man, again, he's such a great value right now in drafts.
I agree.
All right, Chris, what you got next?
I'm gonna go quarterback. I'm gonna go my guy, Roman Gagliano. I've talked about this guy ad nauseum and how high I am on him going into the year. I think I got him ranked as a top 30 quarterback, the highest amongst myself, Jared, and Chris K. If you look at what he was able to produce in the limited role that he had last year, it was just top level production. I think he averaged somewhere around 30 points per game. He's got a more pass heavy offensive coordinator coming in, which could help him progress in his second season or first full season as a starting quarterback for Middle Tennessee. So for me, I mean, the ceilings, the sky is the limit for Roman Gagliano in 2026, man.
I'm gonna fight you on that. That's your boy.
I think he's gonna run a lot less, and
yeah,
I don't know. I'm more hesitant on Gagliano this year.
A lot less by how much? If you had to put like a percentage on the amount he's not going to run.
I would say whatever you think, historically, whatever you think that Ohio State quarterbacks could run, and whatever Ryan Day pulls back on those quarterbacks, I think that's kind of what we're looking at.
That might be a little nightmare scenario for you there, Chris. They don't let their quarterbacks run very much.
No,
they don't.
Their line isn't very good, so it might not. They might not have a choice.
True,
but we will see. We will see.
Well, you guys know who's not going to be throttled back in his rushing whatsoever? Probably the 5th quarterback we're drafting today that fits the mold of not a very good passer, but a dang good rusher. Dwayne Lunch Winfield. Again, very similar to Caden Creel and a lot of these other guys where didn't start the season, but he's another guy that emerged as the season went along. After week 4, he was QB 16 over the remaining period of the season. Again, like a lot of these other guys, very limited passer. They only let him throw 181 attempts last year, and he only had 10 touchdowns passing. But man, ran for 667 yards and 9 touchdowns. He's got it in him to once again just tear up the Sun Belt there. And I believe Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they lose their top 2 running backs from last year.
Yeah. Bill, I'm trying to think. Bill, and then there was another guy, yeah.
Zylan Perry.
Yep.
So they lose their top 2 running backs from last year. Like once again, it's very similar to Creel where he just might get more volume in the rushing department just by default. So I'm happy with Winfield here. You got Chris. You got your finger up. Oh, yes. Yes, thank you. That was perfect. All right, we'll be back after this ad real quick, y'all. We'll see you then.
Hey guys, Austin here to talk for a brief moment about Home Field Apparel, the best place to snag clothing for all my favorite schools and teams. Whether it's tees, sweatshirts, hats, joggers, or pretty much anything in between, Homefield Apparel has retro designs with a modern twist to satisfy fans from Ohio State to Drexel to Colorado School of the Mines. Plus, it's some of the comfiest clothing that I own. Use our promo code Campus2Canton, that's Campus, the number 2 Canton at checkout for 15% off your first purchase. What's up, guys? Austin here again to let you know about our partnership with Fast Draft, a best ball and DFS platform that hosts a ton of different contests. With the season over and season-long CFF best ball behind us, I know I'm looking for new contests that can scratch my drafting itch, and I think I have found just the thing. Fast Draft has a rookie-only contest called Origins. Each draft has 8 teams in it and is 6 rounds long. And as I've mentioned earlier, you only draft incoming 2026 rookies. I know I plan on max entering this thing, and I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So head on over to Fast Draft, and when you sign up, use code C2C, that's C2C, for a deposit match up to $50. Happy drafting.
All right, we are back at it in the 8th round here. Luke, you are on the clock. And once again, reminding everybody, we are drafting 20 rounds between 3 people of only American, Sun Belt, and CUSA players. So like I said, Luke, you're back on the clock here at the 8-1. What you got, brother?
All right, well, I talked about how Gagnon is going to have to pass the ball a little bit more. Who's he going to pass it to?
Great question, Luke.
Great question. I'm going to go ahead and take their wide receiver. Comes in as a transfer from Mississippi State. He's going to be wearing number 1. Who wore number 1 last year? Cox, who did pretty well. I'm going to take Marcus Allen there for Middle Tennessee.
All right, I'm going to write that down. I'll be real. I don't think I have an MTSU player in my rankings, and that's probably an oversight on my part because, like you said, Luke, somebody's got to catch the ball over there. Gagliano's going to have to pass 30, 40 times a game.
Yep, and number 1, I think it's in the jersey. If you wear number 1, I'm trying to remember who wore it like 2 years ago, but there just seems to be something about that number 1, Marcus Allen.
Pretty good number to have as a jersey.
Yes,
Chris,
yeah.
What do you got?
I'm going to go wide receiver. Really came on the year last year, back half of the season, where he averaged 98 yards per game over his last 5 games. Saw a decent amount of targets. The passing game kind of worries me a little bit in what we're going to expect or from this team as a whole when it comes to pushing the ball downfield. But I liked what he put on tape at the back half. I'm going to go DeAndre Johnson from Jacksonville State.
Dude is a monster. 6'7" or 6'8". Can't teach that. Definitely got something with Creel there towards the end of the year. And it's like, chuck it up there. Johnson's down there somewhere.
No,
and
definitely
those back
fun.
half, those 5 games, he got touchdown a game in those last 5 games. So if he could put that together for a whole season, we're looking at a monster.
Oh, yeah.
I
Very,
think so.
very fun pick there. All right. Chris, you were making fun of me before the show about my propensity to take 4 quarterbacks in a row in these drafts.
Go.
And guess what? I'm going to do that again. I'm going to take Owen McCowan here out of UTSA.
Yeah.
Another quarterback that I think is just one of the safest quarterback plays you can make this year. Again, Jeff Traylor quarterbacks have been very good to us over the years. Took him a while to kind of get going last year, despite, him being a pretty entrenched starter. But, by the time the last third came around, he was really back to business. Top 20 quarterback in the last 5 games of the season. A lot of that had to do with the fact that his rushing, I don't know what happened last year with his rushing, but it took a big, big hit. Almost 50% less carries. Going from 4 yards a carry to half a yard per carry. 2 less touchdowns. So I'm hoping they let him run again a little bit more this year. Otherwise, again, he's still pretty safe play at the quarterback position. So.
Right. Let's see here. I took Carey, but this would be just my second running back. Apparently, I have something against running backs, which overall, when you're looking at college football running back, it seems to be a lot of guys being pushed up there at the top. So, hey, what are some of the wide receivers? Hopefully, we're giving people a good idea of wide receivers that you could take at the G6 level. But one running back that I want a piece of is a head coach that I think has underperformed at his current spot. I think at his previous spot, accomplished more with less. Jamie Chadwell at Coastal Carolina, I thought did great things with a lot less at his disposal at Liberty. I know he's got some health concerns and whatnot. I just don't think he's maybe performed up to expectations, but I'm going to take Kanye Udo. Great freshman out of Army, goes to Arizona State, doesn't see much time there, now goes to Liberty. Over the last 8 seasons at Jamie Chadwell, RB1, rushes for just over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. I think Kanye Udo's the guy there. I know it's hard to sift through because they got like 4 notable running back names. I think Kanye Udo, the cream rises to the top, as the Macho Man Randy Savage once said. I think Kanye rises to the top.
I think Udo among the Liberty backs has been the one I've taken the most shots on so far. Again, like other guys like Cam Davis, who's a former borderline 5-star running back, just completely flamed out of Florida State. Now down here at Liberty, they bring in Justin Marshall from Colorado State, Teron Kelman from Wyoming's there, and then Jalen Coleman, who was already on the roster from this past year as a true freshman, was averaging 10 yards a carry last year, and apparently he's set to have a pretty decent role with the Flames this year. But I agree with you, Udo among all those guys is the guy I would take the shot on the most. Yeah, Chris, what you got?
Solid grab. I'm going to go Middle Tennessee running back Antonio Martin in a room that could potentially be wide open. With his time with Anthony Scelfo at Southeastern Louisiana, he put up 1,300 all-purpose yards, 1,200 of those being on the ground. If what Luke is saying comes to fruition and Roman Gagliano is not rushing the ball as much as he did last season, someone's going to carry that rock, and I'm projecting it to be Antonio Martin. So he's the pick for me here.
I think that's a great pick, Chris.
No, he was in my top three in my queue. I was looking at him here, but I got another running back I can go with here. I'm not gonna say much on this because to me he's a boring play, but he's a solid play. I'm gonna go Joe Silver out of Delaware. Yeah, like with a lot of what we've been saying about the Delaware guys, so much returns to that offense. Silver is one of the big ones. I swear to God, if Byron Ellison starts doing that BS goal line takeaway stuff that they were doing last year, I thought he was gone. I only found out recently that he's actually back, which really breaks my heart because I thought that Silver was finally going to have that backfield to himself. But regardless, Silver's a very efficient guy. This running game's really been very efficient over the last couple of years, at least with their top running back. So we don't need him to get 100 or 200 carries to be relevant. He could have himself some really solid production if he gets into that 150, 160 carry range. So I like Silver in this spot. And he's also a pretty solid receiver as well.
All right. I will ask Chris, which safe floor guy do you want me to go for? A running back or a wide receiver?
Wide receiver.
Let's go. Oh, okay. Let's go wide receiver. See.
All right. I think a very safe. You need just stability in what you're going to get each and every week. I think you go with a Tulsa wide receiver transferred to Kennesaw State, Zion Booker. If you look at, I think he slots right into that Gabriel Benyard spot. Both played in the slot last year. Both were getting about 7 targets per game. Both were getting about 4 to 5 receptions a game. The only thing that Gabriel Benyard did different was his intended air yards per target, 14.8 compared to Zion Turner's 4.9. His air yards for Benyard accounted for 33.9% of his catches there. So obviously Benyard used more down the field than Booker. So I think if what you're trying to expect from Booker, I think Gabriel Benyard, whatever you got from him last year, that's probably his ceilings, because Benyard also had 9 receiving touchdowns while only having 5 red zone targets. Amazing efficiencies there. I think Benyard is the ceiling, and I think what Zion Booker did last year is his floor.
No, I like the call there quite a bit, and like you said, somebody's got to take over that spot for Benyard there. Very much could be Booker. My only question is quarterback play, I would say, because
we'll see what Collins can do.
Yeah, we'll see. Problem is, we saw what Ricky Collins could do at the Power 4 level last year, and it was worse than dog poo. So, Chris, what you got, brother?
I'm gonna take the first tight end off the board. Peter Clark out of Temple, averaged nearly 10 fantasy points per game, 6 touchdowns, saw almost 4 targets per outing. Stable when it comes to these 3 conferences. Someone that you're going to be able to plug in your lineup and see a decent amount of usage for you. So nothing extravagant, but a guy that I think will give you a good floor.
I mean, Temple's got to throw it to someone there, right? And 42
Yeah,
targets, 483 yards last year, 6 touchdowns. Like,
yep.
Explosive guy for such a big dude. Like, the fact they were able to get him to come back and have him not transfer to another program was pretty big on their part. I'm gonna go and take the other tight end here. Put our special guest here on the spot for him to find some value at tight end. But I'm gonna go my man Grant Hollier here. Top 10 tight end, second half of last year. Really turned it on with the Georgia State Panthers last year when not much else was going right on that offense. And they're gonna need him again this year because, gosh almighty, without Ted Hurst there, it's a wide open receiving room. And, maybe a guy like DJ Riles steps up or something like that, right? But I know for a fact Hollier is going to be involved in this offense, and he's one of the few tight ends this year that, in my opinion, has the upside to hit 700 to 800 yards by the end of the season, just because there may not be another option in that Georgia State offense.
Do you want me to follow suit and go with a tight end? Otherwise, I can pretty much wait till the very end. How would you like the audience to be teased? I got some names that probably no one's drafting. I can either drop one here, or we can wait a couple minutes and let
Luke,
people stick around.
Luke, you are a showman. You understand that if we tease the audience, that gives them all the reason to watch the entire show. So we're gonna wait till the end.
We will wait. Jared, I will let you hey, Luke, sprinkle your tight end. That's when it happens. I asked you, hey, do you want my floor, my safe option out wide receiver, running back last time? I gave you the wide receiver. Let me give you the running back. This guy, if you look at his head coach and what he has done with running backs for the last 8 seasons, his RB1 averages 952 yards, 10 touchdowns, 19 receptions, and 157 yards. At this point, I think it's a very, very safe. If you are a wrestling fan, you might know him as Coco Beware. I'm going to take Coco Brown, Sam Houston, running back.
It's actually not the running back I thought you were going to go with there. That surprised me, and I'm a big Coco Brown guy. My only thing is I was a lot more in love with the idea of Coco Brown this year until I found out that Alton McCaskill is back for his final year, right? If this was Coco Brown's backfield to himself, I'd be all in on this. Alton McCaskill, I think, is going to be, at the very least, a thorn in his side, even if Brown is indeed the RB1 for this Sam Houston team. Then there's also the possibility that, once again, Sam Houston's offense just could be a dumpster fire again this year. But otherwise, again, I agree with you. Phil Longo's RB1s have been great over the years, and really last year was the first time we saw that kind of fall apart, but part of that was just, again, the entire offense was such a joke that nobody could really succeed in it.
I think that he's going to be the guy who gets the shot first. I mean, Alton McCaskill, he played in 8 games. He had some injuries that he battled through last season, but I think it's going to be the Coco show.
All right. Again, I would love nothing more. I drafted a ton of Coco at the start of the season before I realized that Alton McCaskill was back. So if those shares pay off, I'm totally happy with it.
So if you look at last year, even with both of them in the lineup, Alton McCaskill had 2 more touches per game, but yet Coco Brown averaged about 5.5 yards more on 4 less carries, and he averaged 3.4 targets per game and but 3.08 receptions per game. That's something that Alton McCaskill's not giving you out of the passing game.
Nope, totally agree with that. Chris, what you got?
I'm going to go last season, Alex Perry at Florida International saw 84 targets playing as the X wide receiver, put up 15.1 fantasy points per game. And I'm taking the guy that's going to walk in and fill in that role. Greg Gaines has already gained the trust of the coaching staff. He's gained the connection with the starting quarterback, coming off a 1,000-yard season at the FCS level, the former is looking to slot himself right into that Alex Perry role and be the wide receiver 1 for Florida International.
You will get no argument from me. I've been taking a lot of gains at the end of drafts right now. He's definitely the wide receiver that's most intriguing there at Florida International, in my opinion. Luke, unless you have another guy that you would want to bring up.
Nope. That he was in my queue.
All right. I'm going to take a running back here that I'm quite frankly, I'm surprised that neither one of you guys have taken so far. A lot of us were in love with this transfer at the start of the offseason. Now, granted, he's been injured, and you're hoping he can come back fully. But Jaheim White, coming off the board here in the 11th round of a half G6 only draft here, like that feels like pretty incredible value here. Like even if he's even if he's not quite the same as what he used to be, he's reuniting with his old coach, Neil Brown, who's been good to him before. Neil Brown had some really good stuff with Letty Brown over his last couple of years there. This all comes down to, is White fully back and healthy by the time the season starts? So.
All right. We talked about it at the very beginning. I took him pretty early, but I think you can double tap these wide receivers, and if you miss on one, you get the other, because I think he's going to be pretty productive, even if he is the number 2, and that is going to be another wide receiver out of South Alabama, Mekhi Woods.
Okay. You guys heard it here first. Mekhi Woods. If you can't get Eager, get Woods. What do you like about Woods compared to some of the other guys?
Well, it's more of just like the system. Like he's going to be the number 2 guy there. I'm trying to look at my notes that I have over here, so give me a quick second. But not Casey Woods. I don't care about the head coach. So South Alabama under Major Applewhite, the number 2 option that he's had has been an out wide receiver. Sometimes it's the slot. Sometimes his number 1 the slot. Sometimes it's out wide. But more times than not, it's the slot. So his number 2 happens to be that out wide. But if it happens to be this year, hey, we're going to go with an out wide guy, the number 2 option there is Mekhi Woods, and Major Applewhite wide receiver 2 option averages 17.28 points per game. I think a solid option.
All righty. Chris, what you got, brother?
I'm going to go quarterback, Skylar Locklear from Missouri State. He's following his offensive coordinator in Kala. When Kala was given the role to call plays, that's when really the offense shifted last season for them at UTEP, right? I always get UTEP.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Up. Yeah. So UTEP, and then he transferred. He hasn't been named starter quite yet. He has been battling Henry Bellin, but I'm fully expecting Skylar Locklear to be the guy in that span. He averaged 27.8 fantasy points per game. So that is elite. That's QB1 production out of your quarterback. So I'm expecting I'm not expecting to hit that kind of output throughout the full season, but if he can give us 22 to 25 fantasy points per game, even 20 per game, I'll take it from Skylar Locklear based on where he's getting drafted.
No, I agree with you. I've drafted quite a bit of Locklear as well, and it really is because of the fact that he was a top 10 quarterback second half of last year. So I'm going to take running back here. I'm going to take the guy that I thought you were talking about, Luke. You're talking about, a coach with such a great history of, almost back-to-back bangers for college fantasy for years. I've got a list of names for you here. You ready for this, Luke?
Sure.
Kareem Hunt, Harry Swanson, Bryant Koback, Penny Boone, Chip Trayanum. What do all those guys have in common? Jason Candle. Jason Candle, when he's got a top running back, he will feed the absolute bejesus out of them. And when this offseason first started, there was a lot of options going to that UConn backfield. And I was just kind of waiting for somebody to separate themselves in the pack. And I was scared that we weren't going to really get that until the season started. Well, thanks to the beat report, it does seem like that Trey Cornice, the former Central Michigan running back, has really kind of started to break away from that pack. A lot of them have described him as the workhorse back there. And so to me, getting somebody like that this late, and quite frankly, just as late as he's going in drafts right now, I've been drafting a ton of him recently. I am very big on Cornice this year. What do you got, Luke?
Well, this just throws me for a loop because UConn's independent, and they're not in any of the conferences I thought we were drafting. So I didn't even look at UConn.
That is my bad. That is my bad. I just realized I did not clarify that. You're totally right. I just added them in here, and I didn't even think to mention that. For some reason, like UConn's for some reason I know they're independent, but like I just always associate them with the American for whatever reason.
So what is crazy about UConn is they are going to have to get a conference here soon. Why? Because it is starting to dry up with. You used to have all these independents that we can make a schedule. It is getting harder and harder for them to make a schedule. They're going to have to figure out something here in the near future.
They're already associated with the American in some ways, right? Like they get a lot of their games from the American already, right?
Well, now they've got quite a bit with the Mountain West this year. It's going to be interesting. I think we'll see what they do as a school. But that is something to watch. And something that I did not realize in the MAC, Sacramento State isn't necessarily in the MAC. They have paid for 5 years in the MAC. It is a trial run. They could go back to being whatever they want to be. They could get dropped after the 5 years. So maybe that's something that UConn does with one of these schools, and just how good UConn is at basketball. It kind of makes sense for them to go to the Big 12. The Big 12 tries to stay like, hey, look at all the blue bloods, Arizona, you got Kansas, it would just kind of make sense if they could pick up UConn there.
Or the ACC, maybe get UConn versus Duke.
Yeah.
And UNC.
Well, how about that curveball in the 12th round? Who saw it coming? None of us did.
I did because I threw I threw everything together. That's I'm legit sorry, man. It didn't even cross my mind to like clarify that UConn would be a part of this.
All right. Well, let's talk about a guy that's not getting a lot of talk, and this offense is going to look very, very different. And I think this guy is going to be a big part of the reason why. But I don't see him in here. I don't know if that's
first placeholder. Let's go.
Well, let's see.
What are you looking for, Luke?
It's just he doesn't go by. I was looking for TJ Lott, but he goes by a different name as Tarinum. Troy. I'm going to take the Troy wide receiver. Troy is going to have Troy is not going to be your previous Troy. It is going to look different, and they're going to pass the ball. They're going to be spread out, and they're going to throw it all over the yard.
It makes a lot of sense.
Look for TJ Lott to be the guy. Adam Austin, who comes in to be the OC there. Whether you're the slot guy or the outside guy, TJ Lott is the slot guy. They average 21.22 points per game in 1-point PPR leagues.
Holy crap.
And if they're going to throw it as much as I think they're going to, look out for TJ Lott.
All right, another name I'm writing down, and this is why I bring you on, Luke.
I appreciate it. I can't give away all my secrets, though, right?
I don't know. I can squeeze them out of you by the time this is done. Chris, what you got at the 13-2?
I'm here to help the people. Help the people.
Exactly.
I'm going to go the potential wide receiver one for App State. He is a boundary wide receiver and was the slot wide receiver that saw the bulk of the targets for the team last year. But he put up over 900 receiving yards. Another FCS transfer on my roster, and I'm going to go Chris Lofton.
Good pick with Lofton there. I'm big in on him, and you said it was a slot that got the majority of targets last year for App State, but I mean, go back to 2023 when Logains was working with South Carolina. Xavier Legette, man, 97 targets, 1,255 yards, and 7 touchdowns there. I think, maybe not that high, but clearly Logains knows how to use a boundary wide receiver when he's the top guy you have. So I trust that Lofton will do well. I'm going to go shocking. This is going to be a shocker to y'all. I'm going to go running back again. There's just so many good running backs. And I'm going to go Roderick Robinson out of UAB here. Last 2 years have been interesting for UAB. I mean, they've passed the ball a ton, but if you look at the running backs, between Javon Jackson and Lee BB under Mortensen here, both as offensive coordinator and now head coach, top running back has seen 45.4% raw backfield share and 47.3% raw backfield share these last 2 years. That's not an issue of them using a workhorse. They clearly like to focus in on one guy. The problem is that UAB's been outside the top 90 or 95 really in terms of programs, in terms of rush attempts per game. They've had to throw the ball, whether it's been, their defense is bad and they're having to play catch up, or they just don't trust that offensive line for whatever reason, right? They have not been running the ball as much. They're trying to change that this year, and Roderick Robinson is a huge reason why. They love the fact that they were able to get him out of the portal, and they talk about in several interviews about how he's not the normal type of guy you normally see in the American or really the G6 level, right? So they're excited about him, and if he's that top running back, getting that 45-50% carry share, and they can get themselves back up to about 35-40 rush attempts per game rather than the high 20s and 30s that they've been doing the last couple of years, Robinson should be in for a really, really good time, even if he is sharing the backfield a little bit like they say they're going to. But I think Robinson gets up into that 45-50% share, and he'll be all right.
All right. With my 14th pick, because he's still here, I think he's an explosive option. Kind of surprised that he's lasted this long, but I am going to take God's power. Army running back.
Oh, fair.
Going to run the ball. He's going to be efficient. I think, at this point in the draft, why not?
No, great upside pick. Again, he's quarterback in Fantrax. That should be fixed before the start of the season. He's most definitely going to be a running back this year.
Yes.
All right. Christopher, what do you got?
Only my mom gets to call Christopher. What's up?
No, never mind. No, I thought we were around later already. That's my bad.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go running back. A lot of potential in this backfield. Rushed for, I believe it was 1,100 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 193 carries in the Sun Conference last year, and that is Louisiana Tech running back Jaden Miller.
All right. The name that I need to go take a look at after this. How do you spell that?
Miller, Miller.
Luke, I'm never inviting you back to this show after that. All right. That's handwriting. Anyway, I'm on the clock here. I'm gonna go quarterback here. Apparently I hate wide receivers today, man, because I've drafted one wide receiver and we're in the 14th round here. Hate. But again, quarterbacks, man, they're fun. I'm gonna go Quinn Henicle here. Obviously, Colton Joseph last year, QB3. Before that, Colton Joseph, after he took over, was a top 12 quarterback the last 10 weeks of 2024. This is a team that knows how to use a dual threat quarterback. They promoted their offensive coordinator from within. I have to imagine they're going to want to run a decently similar situation here. I have concern about a lot of the turnover that Old Dominion is dealing with up and down the roster. But once again, you got a dual threat quarterback in the Sun Belt. There's a lot of opportunity for him to have some pretty explosive games here. So I'll happily take Henicle this late.
Chris, great call on Jaden Miller.
Thank you.
I think a guy who, if he's not going, I don't know. Let's see. Our ADP is 308. So what is that? 308 divided by 12. That's in round 25, 26.
Yep.
This is a quarterback that should be going a lot higher, and that is Memphis quarterback Marcus Stokes. He's going to win the job. He's going to be the dude.
Mm-hmm.
Get him while you can, get him at discount while you can. Today, it's like today's price ain't yesterday's price. The price of brick just went up. Stokes, grab him while you can.
No, I agree. He's definitely one of the fun upside quarterbacks that have been taken at the end of drafts right now, and I agree with you. There's an argument that he should be taken at least in like the middle late rounds, if not just the straight middle rounds. They've been very clear, that staff this year, that they want to run their quarterback.
I think they said it in the G5 Hive interview with our beat reporter Jonah. He said, like, before we even got an offensive coordinator, he said coach wanted to find a quarterback that could run the ball. They got an offensive coordinator, and then they went and got this guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they got Kevin Decker, who, again, has been working with Colton Joseph the last 2 years. So clearly that's a coach that knows how to run the quarterback.
Yes, and then has a relation with Stokes going back to recruiting. So
all the pieces are falling in place. All right. Real quick, I forgot to throw it over to ad real quick, so we're going to do that, and we'll be right back. All right. We are back. Ojo, will be a quick second one. Chris, you're back on the clock here with the 15-2, and we'll go through these last six rounds here pretty quickly. So we'll try to keep it to 1 to 2 sentence explanations.
Okay, this will be a quick one. I'm gonna go. Unlike Jared, I'm not allergic to taking wide receivers, and the wide receiver in this room saw 100 targets over the last two seasons, I believe it was. The offensive coordinator has been promoted to head coach, and the slot wide receiver has been dominant in his schemes, and that's Ty Mims from UAB, who I'm projecting to be the starting slot wide receiver.
Yeah, good pick. All right,
I'm going to depend on injuries. I think if there's a couple guys that they would like, but I think Ty Mims' best ability is availability, and he's been proven that. So he could get the first crack at that slot position, but I like that. Yeah,
I think Caleb Brown's the other name they're kind of trying to figure out if he'll be healthy enough for the start of the season. So that for those wondering who Luke might be referring to there, and Luke, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Caleb Brown. The other name, probably won't get to draft him, so I'll just mention it here, is Jalen Elder. Is probably like that. You could go Ty Mims. He's who I would take first if I'm personally drafting. Then I would take Elder. Then I would take Brown. I'm just not so sure Brown will be healthy come the beginning of the season. But if he is, then that kind of changes the dynamics a bit.
All right. I'm going to take a wide receiver here finally. I'm going to take the guy that we were projecting to be the wide receiver 1 for this team last year before DeMarcus Lacey just kind of came out of nowhere. But I'm going to take Adrian Norton here out of Marshall. We saw Lacey as a top wide receiver last year get 93 targets. We saw in the spring game came around. Who do they sit at wide receiver? Adrian Norton. And they specifically said, we're protecting our asset. He's going to be their wide receiver 1 for this year. We'll see if, having Carlos Del Rio Wilson limits him in the passing too much to where he's not going to really be as, efficient as he has been if he is the top guy. But at this point, I'm happy to take the shot.
Plus, last year, he was like a late addition right before the beginning of the season. And that kind of explains what took him so long to get going. He's definitely going to be probably their number 1 option. I love that. He's definitely maybe going to be their number 1 option. Yeah, I like Norton there.
This is the kind of analysis you get when we're recording this past midnight.
Yes. The guy that I'm going to take here is going to be the number 1 running back in this room. I like what they do with this offensive coordinator. We've talked about him plenty. His running back ones average 15.47 points per game as an RB1, and that is going to be Ramon Green at a Missouri State.
Good call.
Mark Kalla is the play caller I'm talking about.
Hey, good call with Ramon Green. He's another guy that I've been meaning to add to my rankings, and I just keep forgetting to. No, good call out there. Chris, what you got, brother?
Ooh, getting down to it with some of these names left on the board. I got a couple running backs that I like, but I'm not too sure they're going to be listed as best player available. So I'm going to take a shot on a running back, vaulted into the running back 1 position because the guy ahead of him transferred out, and that's Florida Atlantic running back Caden Shields-Dutton.
All righty. Again, if it's an offense that you plan on scoring a lot, again, I don't typically love Zach Kitley RB1s, but if it's an offense that has a chance to score a lot, might as well take the top running back and just hope that he falls into the end zone quite a few times. All right.
Yep.
I'm going to go wide receiver here. I'm going to go a guy that I've kind of crapped on this season a little bit. But, again, he's fallen late enough in a draft like this now. I think it's worth taking him. I'm going to go Shelton Sampson here out of Louisiana.
You have crapped on him quite a bit.
I've crapped on him quite a bit this year. But here, at this point, I'll again, one, I've laid on wide receiver, so might as well, take him. But also, two, I crapped on, how high people were taking him. He's definitely fallen a little bit now. I think he's starting to get back into the proper range, in my opinion. And then two, he only had a couple good games last year and then started falling off a little bit again. He's still the most talented wide receiver in that Louisiana room. And without, their top running backs and everything, they could have to rely on him even more this year. There's a shot where Sampson, especially now year 2 with this system, he could take off a lot more than what he did last year.
He will be the guy. He will be the guy there. Let's see here. We're starting round 17. I think I only have 215 more guys ranked. So I don't know who I am going to go with. But somebody that I think we should talk about, people should know about. This offensive coordinator, let's see here. He has, over the last 6 seasons, he has favored the slot. The slot has averaged 94 targets, 63 receptions, 834 yards, and 5.5 touchdowns. I feel like that's a pretty nice floor. If you take that over 12 games, that's 15.1 points per game in full point PPR. And I am talking about, I got to put him on here too. Oh my gosh. Suspense. And it's going to be Jalen Mickens, wide receiver out of Louisiana Tech. He's going to be the slot guy. I think he is going to be the guy that you want to own there if you want a wide receiver on the Sonny Cumbia offense.
It is in a moment like this that I realize just how little I've paid attention to Louisiana Tech this offseason, and it sounds like I need to go double check that.
I think they've got some pieces, but yeah, I'm looking at Troy Franklin, what he's done, and he likes him the slot and wide receiver 2, big drop off, 67 targets, but so what's interesting, the wide receiver 1 typically is the slot, and the wide receiver 2 has been the slot. So that tells me between the outside, it always is. So if you just take the slot, you could get the number 1 guy. You might get the number 2, and it's fine. But, hey, if I'm going to take an educated guess, I think take the slot.
So avoid outside guys at Louisiana Tech is what I'm hearing.
Well, you can get the outside guy and the slot. They kind of go back and forth. But, if you were to, say, out of 9 years, 5 of the 4 would be the slot. And then, again, I would say just take the slot.
Gotcha. Chris, what you got at the 17-2?
Another transfer wide receiver, gaining a lot of praise all through spring. Then 2 30-plus yard touchdown quarterbacks fighting for role, and that's Southern Mississippi wide receiver Mario Sanders.
All right, Chris, you broke up a little bit there. Why don't you quickly re-explain your Mario Sanders pick?
Yeah, sorry. Just a wide receiver that's been getting constant praise through spring. In the spring game, he caught 30 plus yard touchdowns from both quarterbacks, jockeying for position to be the QB1 there at Southern Mississippi. So for me, Mario Sanders has the potential to be the wide receiver 1 on his team, and that's what I'm chasing right now.
Blake Anderson, wide receiver 1s, man. They have been good to us over the years. Really, last year was probably the first disappointing year we've gotten out of them. But yeah, I like to pick this late. I'm going to go wide receiver again here. I'm going to go Tristan Gardner out of Coastal Carolina, formerly of Missouri State. Follows that old Missouri State staff over to Coastal Carolina here. That staff has typically favored the slot in recent years, but there's a decent shot that Gardner's connection to this staff might change that. He's very efficient with his touches. He doesn't need a ton to be relevant here. In my projections, he only has about 75 targets, and that is plenty to make him relevant for CFF. So I'm willing to take the shot on a guy that doesn't need all that much.
All right. Well, I'm going to take you. You've made it this far. I'm going to take one of my. He's not maybe the tight end I would take first, because I'm gonna have people stay around. I'm gonna wait till the last pick. That's who I'd take first. But a tight end that no one's really talking about. You guys can tell me. Let's hear what is his ADP. Let's see here. His ADP is currently 327.25. His offensive coordinator averages 8.29 points per game for the tight end 1, and I am going to take Jerron Askren, tight end, Missouri State.
Well, that's all the confirmation I need. I remember I teased at the very beginning. I was like, there's like a 7th tight end that I might consider adding to my rankings later. Well, Askren was that guy, so you gave me the confirmation that I needed there, Luke.
Absolutely, yeah. I think they're gonna throw the ball around. I think he's gonna be a solid option there.
All right, Chris. When are you taking your boy at tight end, Chris? He's available in this player pool.
Who's my boy?
Benny.
Oh, I'm gonna hold a little bit. I'm gonna hold a little bit. I got another.
You made me sing for no reason, Chris.
You could sing some more, Jared.
No, I'm actually so good.
You hit the high note pretty good. What is that? Falsetto's the high note?
Right? So musical nerd coming out here. Falsetto is not actually hitting the high note. It's basically using what's called your head voice, right? You're almost faking being able to hit those high notes. You're not actually singing those high notes.
Gotcha.
Because I can't believe you didn't know that, Chris. Oh my god,
I know, right?
Well, like like when you sing, everything's supposed to come from like your diaphragm, right? Like down into your like your stomach and your chest and stuff like that. When you sing, like, I knew that part. When guys sing like those high notes a lot of times, they just kind of do it all in there. Like you literally almost feel it in your head when you're singing it. That's falsetto.
Gotcha. You know, it's past midnight.
This is what we're debating right now. I know. Take a pick, Chris. Save us.
I'm going to go TJ Johnson, wide receiver out of Old Dominion, another standout through camp. The ex-wide receiver at ODU last year averaged 10.5 fantasy points per game. So I'm just another guy that I'm going to be, even though the slot wide receiver was the target lead, but the ex-wide receiver was still productive for fantasy. So I'm taking TJ Johnson.
All righty. I'm having running back withdrawal. I got to go back to running back. I'm going to take Keenan Phillips here out of Southern Alabama. I've been hesitant to draft really between him or P.J. Martin. I think there's a case for either one. Obviously, Phillips was the RB2 last year behind Kentrell Bullock, but a lot of that was that P.J. Martin was injured, and P.J. Martin's still injured. But the thing is, P.J. Martin's build and skill set kind of fits more of what we've typically seen that RB1 for South Alabama be, so I don't want to completely count him out. But Phillips, as you said earlier, Luke, availability is the best ability. Phillips has been healthy. He's been working with the team. There's been some kind of talk that he will be the RB1 coming into this year, so that's why I'm willing to take him at this point.
I would be on the other side of the fence. I'll take the other running back that you had talked about.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I think there's a case for both of them.
All right, let's see here. Who to take here? Well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways they could go here. Somebody needs to go in this room, and I will take who I think will be the number one wide receiver in this room, and that's going to be Hunter Summers, wide receiver, Arkansas State. Now, what's going to happen is if you're in a PPR league, I think you got to take the other wide receiver there in Chauncey Cobbs, because he's going to get more receptions. But Hunter Summers is going to be the guy getting the downfield catches. He's going to get more of the touchdowns, because when they get to the red zone, they're going to look to hit the outside for touchdowns. So that's why I think Hunter Summers ends up being the number one. But if you're in a PPR league, Chauncey Cobbs is a great floor play. Either way, I think both of those guys should get taken in drafts.
Problem is for me with Summers is that he's just been so inefficient. Just so inefficient, especially for an outside guy. I mean, again, 11.3 yards per catch last year, 12.9 the year before. You give me an outside wide receiver getting 75 targets and you're just barely scraping 500 yards on the season. That's not something that really gets fixed in one off season there. So that's kind of my big worry with him. I agree with you on the red zone opportunities. He will certainly have them there, especially with Corey Rucker gone. But I personally I definitely have drafted more Cobb than Summers so far this offseason.
I got so many guys that I just want to talk about, and I'm like,
no, I know. Dude, my queue is still relatively full here. I'm kind of surprised.
I got 200.
Yeah. Chris, what do you got, brother?
I gotta go running back. Georgia Southern. The potential next man up in that running back room. David
Badinga.
Good luck.
It's just so I actually confirmed this because I have a friend who went to Georgia Southern and actually knows this guy, but it's just David Badinga.
Badinga. So the M is silent.
Don't worry about the M. You're gonna just make yourself look bad.
Okay.
Trying to include that.
Jesus. So yeah, that's my pick there. This late in the draft could be a solid pick.
Yeah, for an air raid system, Clayton Helton's been pretty solid about producing some solid RB1s there, at least providing them a lot of scoring opportunities. So, yeah, I don't blame the Badinga pick at all. Said it earlier, we love the Zach Kittley system. Surprised that none of us here have really taken a shot on a wide receiver 2 in this system. We obviously love Messer. I'm going to go Dom Henry here. I don't know if you guys are going to make any other picks, but I think there's other guys you could take shots on, like Kelby Valson, who comes over from Texas Tech, who's worked with Zach Kittley before. I think it's a decent shot as the wide receiver 2. You also got Brandon Hawk. I've seen people start to kind of get into there as well. He returns from last year. Regardless, again, my PSA here is Kittley's going to throw 500 times. Messer's going to get a lot of those targets. There's going to be room for at least one other guy in this room to be pretty solid for CFF. So that's my PSA on that. Luke, your final pick of the draft. I'm sure you got 200 names you're deciding between. Who is the most important one?
You know what? I'll just ask you guys what, Chris, what position would you like me to go? Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end?
Let's go tight end. I'd like to hear one of these names you got.
All right. I do not believe he is in Fantrax.
Oh, that's a great.
So I'm not sure who would you like me to use as a
just somebody from the same team.
All right, let's see here. We'll do this one then. Gosh, that guy's not in Fantrax either. All right. Well, I didn't know that.
What team are we looking at here?
We are looking at New Mexico State.
Okay. There we are.
I guess I could do that.
I'm just doing Duke Fry.
Okay.
I just put in a senior. I just assume they're gone. I have no clue.
Yeah. So why do I want to pick a placeholder at New Mexico State? great question. But Ray Lawton is the guy's name that I'm looking for. Ray Lawton should be the tight end one there at New Mexico State. It's going to be hard to replicate, what those great tight ends have done at New Mexico State. You think of Eli Stowers, who is over there, goes to Vanderbilt. You've got, why am I blanking on his name? Just last year.
Gavin Harris.
I don't want to say he's the next Gavin Harris, but I don't think he's that far off. Just a name to stash away.
All righty. Chris, your final pick. Who are you going to go with here?
Steve talked about him last week. North Texas wide receiver Corey Millionaire.
Alrighty.
Productive when he was at UAB. A little bit of some personal issues there on why he missed the back part of the season, but he could walk into North Texas and be the wide receiver one. So Corey Millionaire to keep it short.
Alrighty. So many directions I think I could go with my last pick here, but I'm gonna go with a wide receiver in a system that, quite frankly, like if you have a full 30 round draft and your 12 teams and everything, at least one wide receiver from this room should be taken in that draft, and I'm gonna go Josh Dallas out of Georgia Southern here. Again, the air raid system at Georgia Southern. We saw Camden Brown be elite for the system last year. Josh Dallas coming back from injury, obviously not great. He's also playing in the slot. It's been kind of 50-50 on whether the slot's been productive under Clay Helton there. But my thing is, Dallas is one of these guys where I think he'll play wherever they need him to be. He's got the experience in the slot. He's also like 6'2", almost 200 pounds. Like, he can play on the outside if they really need him to. And so I think he is probably the safest play in that Georgia Southern wide receiver room. All right, gents. We're up against the clock here, but man, I'm looking at the guys left in my queue. There's so many good names here. Like, I'll just run through the quarterbacks real quick. Rodney Tisdale out of Western Kentucky, Cameron Brown out of Georgia State.
Yep.
Either one of the UConn quarterbacks between Osborne and McClinger, whichever you want to go with. Luke, you were talking about Troy. If they're throwing the ball around a whole lot this year, Will Crowder's going to be interesting. Ryder Burton out of UAB will be interesting if they still have to throw the ball a ton. Either one of the North Texas quarterbacks between Taven Jackson or Chris Jimerson could be interesting. And then Malachi Singleton at App State, I think, could be a ton of fun. We saw what Dowell Gaines was able to do with Lenora Sellers. I think he could do something very similar with Malachi Singleton if he is the starting quarterback there. So,
Malachi Singleton, I think, is a sleeper. I didn't draft him. I probably should have. I think he's going to get 10 to 15 designed runs a game, and I don't care how efficient you are at passing. If you're going to get 10 or 15 designed runs, he's going to produce.
No, I agree. I've drafted Singleton as my sixth quarterback in a lot of best ball so far because I agree. The upside's insane. Chris, running backs. Who's still on the board that kind of surprised you?
Quentin Jackson out of Rice, getting a lot of attention through spring of him being the possible running back one there. Dominic Nicely, Coastal Carolina. We want to identify whatever running back is going to be the RB1 out of Jacksonville State, whether that's Lando
or Coastal Carolina.
Savage.
Oh, sorry. It's my bad. This again. We're past midnight. You moved on to the next. Gotcha.
Yeah. Devin Roche out of Old Dominion, 50-50 split there last year. Trey Hall, the transfer running back, has been gaining a lot of attention as well. So running back wise, I think, and then you got Nick Herman or possibly George Pettaway out of JMU, and then Jashawn Barbie from Marshall is another one that maybe was at the top of my list, maybe should have been drafted. And then you got the VP guy in Jalen Coleman out of Liberty, who has been gaining a lot of attention as well. But again, another draft with no true freshmen. I'd like to hear from Luke if there's any that could possibly make some noise in these conferences this year.
Let's see here. I didn't have. I could have.
Well, while Luke's
don't
looking
have
at that,
nothing.
I'll comment on. I'm kind of leaning more towards George Pettaway more and more in that JMU backfield. I think he'll be mostly committee, but again, there's just been a lot of talk about how Pettaway felt slighted last year after Wayne Knight kind of took over. Like Pettaway got injured, Wayne Knight like started performing well, and then they just weren't going to take Wayne Knight off the field with how well he was doing. And Pettaway, again, he said he felt slighted. So this year he really wants to prove himself. So that either turns into him crashing and burning by week 5, or he could end up being the catalyst for that JMU offense this year. So
I think Pettaway's the one there at James Madison.
So Luke, did you find any true freshmen, Luke, that you were interested in?
Yeah, RJ Blunt, running back at Temple. He
Okay.
would be my freshman that I'd be interested in. The other couple would be, I don't think they really do anything this year. I guess this would probably be more of a dynasty play, but they could do something, and that would be Dominic White and Katori Marion, both freshman wide receivers.
I love
I guess
Marion.
Dominic White. Maybe I thought White was a freshman. It says he's a junior in here. Anyways, but yeah, Marion, a freshman at South Alabama.
I've got my eye on Marion for sure. Again, like I said, if Eager falters in the slot again this year, I would not be shocked to see Marion potentially get an opportunity at earning that slot, especially in the second half of the season. Speaking of wide receivers here, again, a lot of names still on the board here that I'm just frankly like. It really goes to show just how many fun options there are at wide receiver to take on in these conferences. Again, we talked about Chauncey Cobb, Tyler King out of Mexico State could be huge this year. Clayton Kopic, I mentioned that Coastal Carolina staff that formerly of Missouri State, they tend to favor the slot. So Clayton Kopic is one that I'm keeping an eye on there at Coastal Carolina. Zion Taylor, he's that outside option for Western Kentucky. Shout out you guys, Luke, over there at G5 High for putting him on the radar. Jace Freeman's a guy from Stony Brook that's going to Temple this year that I've got my eye on there. Landon Sides follows the coaching staff from North Texas to East Carolina. Talk about Ray Joseph. None of us took a South Florida wide receiver, despite the fact that Brian Hartline has been
not one South Florida player in.
Yeah, that's you're 100% right, Chris. Yeah, not a single South Florida player in general here at all. DJ Riles out of Georgia State's another one that I was kind of surprised by. Yeah, I think other than that, Luke, is there any other wide receivers you were kind of shocked didn't come off here?
I do want to say I did find Rayfield Lawton is what the tight end in New Mexico State is in at Faintrack. So he is in there, Rayfield Lawton. Wide receiver wise, if you want to do a system play, I mean, I'm not going to buy into it this year, but Phil Longo, slot wide receiver, Grady O'Neill, an option if you want to take a dart throw. Hey, I need a cut candidate. I think he is somebody that easily could rise that no one's talking about right now.
Agreed. Good call.
Let's see here. Oh, other wide receivers could be. I think Jamel Hardy Jr. At UTSA being on the outside, he is a name to watch out for. I think. Let's see here. We talked about Lofton. I think you talked about Tyler King. I think another name, more of a big play name, more of a best ball guy would be A.J. Williams. No one drafted Sam Brown as a running back, but I think he's going to have a solid year. Liberty, Jamari Persons is a guy to know. ODU, if you want somebody there, I think the slot is probably what you want to look at, and I think that's going to be with talking with my sources close to ODU. I think J.J. Harrell could be a guy to watch, and I think that's like all the names, at least wide receiver that's worth kind of talking about right now.
Alrighty. Well, plenty of names for all you guys out there. This is why I bring Luke on. He will provide you all the names that you have never heard of, who could end up being real. Like I say that lovingly in the fact that, like, again, Luke will say all these names, and we'll be looking back in like 5 months and being like, yeah, probably should have listened to Luke in that moment.
Yeah,
when he brought all those names up.
Well, one name, for example, I think last year you had asked me, hey, is there a freshman that we should be keeping our eye on? And the name that I gave you was Jakari Lewis, and I think he's going pretty high this year.
Yeah, doing pretty well. Like I said, Luke is worth listening to, I would say, y'all. So, again, up against the clock here. We're actually almost at 2 hours, so good job, y'all. Plenty of content for people to listen to this week. It'll make up for the fact that we did not have a live stream draft this week. We'll be back with those next week, by the way. If you're wondering what's going on with those, again, just had some scheduling conflicts that made it to where we could not do that this week. But next week, we have a banger guest for that. We got Will Stone, the owner and creator of the new the new college fantasy platform, Blue Chip. Screwed that one up. My apologies. Be on the lookout for that. Again, Luke's doing great work over at the G5 Hive along with Justice, and we'll have Justice on next week to finish up these G5 or G6 players. Chris, you and I are knee deep, waist deep, neck deep, eye deep. How deep can we go here, Chris, on the CFF guide? We're moving on to the player profiles this week. We're knocking those out. Lots and lots of great stuff coming to you guys with that. And again, Luke, appreciate all of your insight today. Definitely, I need to go back and look at some of those team profiles and make sure that I am providing some updated information here from you guys. So before we get out of here,
Appreciate
Luke,
it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was going to say, anything you want to say, Luke, before we get out of here?
I just say, go follow everything that we're doing at the G5 Hive. We'll have a little fantasy talk at the end of our shows. Monday during the seasons, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, we go live, almost do kind of like a Sports Center type update on the games and what to look forward to. We have a little injury talk at the beginning. We are waist deep, eye deep in our Worker Bee series. Currently, we have 40 of the 70 done. Got 30 more to go. So I've been writing those previews, getting ready to talk with those reporters. We got those on YouTube, X, Instagram, wherever you want to kind of consume your information. A lot of good information. I think great tidbits. I mean, you guys probably listened to a little bit last year. Hopefully you guys got great tidbits from it last year that helped.
Oh, for sure.
Danny Scudero name I think we talked about. We even had him on the show. He did pretty good. We're out there trying to. We probably hurt college fantasy football for the people who do a lot of the digging, because we uncover some of these names, but we are helping it be a little bit more accessible to everybody else.
That again, it's great at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, what really matters is that more people have access to good information, and you guys are doing that. So
yeah,
and
those are coming out. Those will come out Monday through Fridays during the week, wherever you get your podcasts, and like I said, on YouTube.
Sure. Chris, you got anything you want to say before we get out of here? You can finally go to bed.
The tight end that Jared sang about, who gave us his beautiful falsetto, was Benny Okura. Would have been a freshman tight end that would have been drafted if I had taken him.
Yeah, speaking of tight ends, again, Toby Payne, Caden Jensen, Eli Finley, and Hunter Tipton are also names that probably should have come off in this draft at some point. Yeah. But that's all we got. Appreciate all of you guys out there. We've come to the end of the show. Again, you guys are awesome. Thank you all for listening. If you have not already, make sure you leave a like, a comment, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're on the podcast, make sure you follow the show. Leave a 5-star review wherever you can. Make sure you guys check out the rest of the Campus to Canton Podcast Network for shows ranging on pretty much anything you can think of related to the college fantasy game. And we'll see you guys back here, like I said, next week. We'll cover the second half of the G6 conferences. We'll hit up the Mountain West, the Pac-12, and the MAC. Until then, really appreciate you guys and hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed week. See y'all.